Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of the Sanibel Captiva Guide podcast. We're very fortunate to have Don Abbott join us today. Don is a long-time island resident and basically came here in the 60s, was it called, 70s?
Oh gosh, I landed at the airport here in 1961 and hardly got off, and then went back to Indiana, but we didn't really officially get here till 81.
Perfect. So if you don't know, a couple of episodes before we did a podcast with the wonderful Liz Abbott and
Don's daughter.
Don's daughter, yeah, and we go back a little ways from me photographing Liz's wedding, and we actually were lucky enough to go flying with Don a few weeks back, and we've had some connections through the theatre. So, Don, why don't you start us off and just let us know a little bit about your background, how you got here, what brought you down to these shores, and where you're from originally?
Well, where I'm from originally is Ohio, which is often pronounced Iowa, but I don't know why. At any rate,
What part of Ohio?
Southeastern Ohio, a little town called Cambridge.
Okay.
I call it the illiteracy capital of the world.
The little what?
The illiteracy capital.
capital.
And then, let's see, through radio nomadism, where I went from market to market being a disc jockey in the 50s and 60s, I wound up in Indianapolis in 59 and started a production company there in 1965. And one of the agencies we worked for, we did radio and television commercials and major multi-image shows and things. One of the agencies we worked for called me on a February morning. I remember snowy and it was icy, and I was in the office and nobody else could make it. They kept calling me, can't make it in. But the agency called and said, would you be interested in going down to Florida and talking to a man who has a new thing called timesharing? And he needs a sales film. And I said, let's see, Florida, February.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I could
up.
do that. Yeah, right. So I hopped an airplane. I came down to Sanibel Island, which I'd never heard of, and met a man by the name of Keith Trowbridge. And Keith had brought timesharing from Canada into the U.S. and formed a company called Captran. Captran was a huge company with many resorts, started on Sanibel, and Keith wanted to franchise all of their concepts and signage and all that, and needed a sales film done. So I hired Dick Van Patten, who was with Eight Is Enough, and I figured it was a family affair, so we'll hire him. He and his wife flew in, and we produced the first sales film for Captran. Keith kept saying, sell your company, move down here, be my marketing director. And I said, finally one night, I said, Keith, let's just settle this. Here's the way it'll work. You move me, my family, my parents, all my key people, the company. You give me free rent for a year, and I'll sign up to be on your board of directors for X number of dollars, and I'll handle all your marketing. And I thought he was going to say, you're really ridiculous. And he said, no, it sounds good.
Wow.
So we moved.
Wow.
Much to the despair of my wife.
Right.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
Who I think Liz told you we called Tropical Depression Betty for 2 years.
Yep.
At any rate, so we moved here. And we brought some of our clients with us, but long distance is tough to do. We picked up a few extra clients here, including Keith. Unfortunately, his company went bankrupt 8 months later.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Wow. And we were out in the cold.
Wow.
And so I had to go over and have a studio built. Took a lot of our reserves and built a studio and started a building business back up.
Right.
And we did that, and we were in business then until 1992, I guess.
Was that on Sanibel?
No, that was on Metro Parkway in Fort Myers.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
We did a lot of shooting on Sanibel.
Right.
Because Sanibel, as you know, has a topography that you can fool a lot of people of where you really are.
Right.
Yeah, there's been, I think, over the years, and you know more than me, I remember Laurie's aunt when we first came here back in 99, or when I was first visiting here in 96, I think the causeway just had some trees added from a commercial. Wasn't that correct?
There was
Yes,
a Toyota commercial or
absolutely.
something that was filmed.
Chevrolet.
Oh, was that what it was? Chevrolet.
And
right.
it was a mess. They shut down the causeway. They were supposed to be 20 minutes out of every hour they would shut down the causeway. And I think they shut down up to four or 5 hours.
Right. So
one
imagine
day.
the traffic.
Oh my gosh.
And it was just ridiculous. And I watched the commercial. They were here for a week. They had helicopters. They had multiple camera crews and all that. And I watched the commercial later, and they had one shot of a Chevrolet going across a bridge, which they could have
been
done
any bridge.
place.
Anywhere.
Right. And that was it. It was probably like a 30-second commercial, too, for all that.
Oh
That's
my
crazy.
gosh.
We'll have to
So-
look it up and see if we can find it online somewhere.
But Sanibel was quite different at that time, 1981.
I can imagine.
I can't believe it's been 40 years.
Wow.
Holy
incredible.
smokes, because I'm only 38.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was going to say. you
how
look,
that
you look
works.
great.
But, geez, Sanibel, it was a real shock moving to a remote island after being in a market of over 1 million people.
Yeah.
I got here before Liz and Betty did. I came in, I think, March or April, and they came right after school let out, and so they could
summer.
get all that going. And we rented a place over in Gumbo Limbo
Right.
at the time. And Betty came down, and the first day we were there, we had an alligator and an otter
Oh, wow.
in the backyard. She thought that was kind of neat.
Yeah.
Right.
Not.
So I remember I had some friends with Captran, husband and wife, and being March, April, May, I think around middle of June, we decided to go to the Island Cinema. And we went there, and we were sitting in our chairs. And that time, it had one screen. It was a
Right.
Is it in the same location as it is now?
yeah, same place. So at any rate, we're sitting there and waiting on the film to start, and there are like 4 people in the theater. And all of a sudden, 4 more people came in, and the original 4, with the exception of me, started applauding. And I said, "What's going on?" And I said, "Well, unless they have 7 people, they won't show the movie."
Oh my gosh.
We're like, yes, it's going to. That's funny.
It's when you invite your friends.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I really want to see
Which
it.
is sad to note that I don't know if you knew that they are closing the Island Cinema. Had you
What
heard
a
that?
shame.
Yeah.
It is really a shame, you know,
Yeah.
but I guess
It's just the
time
times.
takes care of that.
Exactly.
Now people have, 80-inch TV screens in their
Right.
home and do their own popcorn. And,
right. But I know a lot
and
of
the
people
popcorn does not cost $20.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I know people are upset about that.
Well,
but-
I think it's a good thing too. I mean, the Bailey's General Store. We
Right, I
saw
was
all
gonna
the
say that.
renderings of the
Yeah.
new store that they're going to be doing. And
Oh, it's very exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very exciting.
Yeah.
So I think it'll make way for something modern and something time
Absolutely.
for change. Time for change.
Absolutely.
Yes,
It's
and
gonna be
Richard
beautiful.
Johnson has done a wonderful job, not only with that store, but for Sanibel.
I agree.
100%. We've had some nice interactions recently with Richard and his family, and
Right.
very inspirational. And
Yeah.
hopefully, we'll have a good relationship going forward. So it started off very well. They've actually started becoming a sponsor of this channel, which is fantastic.
terrific.
So
Yeah.
we're going to be doing some films highlighting Bailey's, and
Right,
which we
just-
would have done anyway because it's such an interesting story. But
Well, I had a good friend in Sam Bailey and also Francis. Francis was more of our friend than Sam was because he commuted from Tampa
Right.
to Sanibel.
Really?
But I remember Francis in his desk. I'll never forget that. I walked into his office one time. His desk was piled this high with paper. He had a little space in the center of it where he would operate. And I would say, Francis, do you remember, I came here on a Thursday, I think it was 1982, and I bought something. Oh, yeah, that's right here.
And you
He
post
would pull it out of the stack.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I had the
cool.
good fortune of meeting them both, and I photographed them a couple of times. So yeah.
Yeah.
And for those that don't know, they were
Icons.
the first generation Bailey store owners.
Yes.
Originally opened at the turn of the century, was it?
Yeah,
Yeah, 1901, I think.
1889.
1899.
with the packing company on the end of Bailey
which,
Road.
Which is their father.
Yeah, if you see where it's come today, it's like a fantastic, huge.
But they're huge proponents of the island, and they donate tons of money
and time and
time.
effort. So
Right.
I remember their credit system. I loved the way they kept credit. You would go in, you'd buy some stuff, and they'd say, "Well, just write it down on this pad, and when you're coming by, give us some money." Yeah, that's all right.
Really?
Even when you moved here? Wow. We should try that today for lunch.
My wife had to go back to Indiana. Unfortunately, her mother passed away, and shortly after we got here. And I went down to Hucksters. I didn't have a lot of reserve cash at home. I went down to Hucksters, and I walked in, and I said, I need to get some money, and I don't know how we work that. Oh, I said the owner's right in the back room, and they were back there, I don't know, talking on a Sunday morning. And I went back and introduced myself and told them what the situation was, and they said, "Oh, no problem. How much money do you need?" And I said, "Well, a couple $100." I said, "Oh, here you are. Take that." I said, "Do I sign anything?" No, that's all right. Just come by sometime this week, pay us back.
Oh, wow.
That's incredible.
The general manager of the bank, the first bank here, said he was in that crowd, and he said, "By the way, I always keep a reserve of cash down at the bank, so call me if you need anything." That was kind of, what a place to live.
Yeah.
Incredible. And Hucksters is still there, going strong today. It's a deli on by the causeway.
Right. They have great takeout
do some
sandwiches,
great
chicken.
lunches and to-go foods and general store. So, it's still there today.
Can't remember how many Jim's Irish sandwiches I had. It was piled with corned beef. And
we've had those. We're a big fan of the Sanibel stacker as well.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
You can't tell.
I remember when Liz was on, she talked about Shirley's Spirit of Foolishness.
Right.
Okay, this was a remote bar on Captiva, and it looked like just a house. And down below the house, this wild lady had this bar, and I think she had maybe 4 or 5 bottles of booze there, and I don't think any mixes. Everybody just drank.
Right,
it's
neat.
But that was it. We'd all sit around and have a good time, and everything was dilapidated, and that was one of our.
Wow,
big
and where
homes.
was that located?
It was on Captiva, and I can't you know where Lazy Flamingo is, and you go back in there.
Okay.
I think that's where it
Like
was.
Pine Avenue?
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
wow.
Just before the bridge over to Captiva.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, how long did it take you to get going? So, you moved down, you had an unexpected bankruptcy, and then you had to start your own thing again. Which, obviously, being a businessman, I think business people are certainly able to
Adaptable.
adapt. But having said that, you normally give yourself a head start. And, how long did it take you to settle in? And
well, I one of my either pluses or minuses is entrepreneurship and being able to adapt to the situation. And I had a lot of diversity going on. I started first thing I did was I organized a hurricane survival kit. And it was called HELP, H-E-L-P, Hurricane Emergency Life Protection.
Great.
And
Genius.
we manufactured those, and we had them in 3 phases, and put them in the newspaper. We did a big double truck ad, and I learned something very important. People do not want a survival kit unless there is a hurricane coming right at them. So
Right, and it's too late.
we know all about panic buying in Florida, don't we?
Right.
So that's one of the diversifications. We started a broadcast school because we had all the gear. Broadcast Careers Institute was operating out of our building. As I say, we did a lot of things for our ex-clients in Indiana, and that's I wore out 2 airplanes, I think, going back and forth to Indiana. Yeah. So that was crazy. And then we picked up some local accounts, and Mariner was one of our big accounts.
Okay,
Which
which
are
is South
were
Seas.
the owners of South Seas or are?
South Seas,
South Seas,
yeah.
yeah.
And at that time, the Dunes and Sundial.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So, okay.
And then Liz also mentioned that you did like an audio tour of the island of some sort.
I did an audio cassette tour about the history of Sanibel, and it was timed so that you would listen to a portion of it, and then you would proceed to another area, turn it off, and then restart it.
Right.
And that was kind of cool.
That is very cool.
That's totally forward thinking. It's
be something we could do now.
Yes.
And then I had that midlife crisis that my wife wished I had never done. I decided to get into the restaurant business.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh,
dangerous.
Tell us all about that.
In Indiana, I had a young man that worked for me in sales, and he had graduated from Cornell. And he came to me and said, I want to start some restaurants. And I know everything about food prep and management and all that, but I don't have a creative bone in my body. So I want you to theme these restaurants for me. We did 14 restaurants. And our first was, we went out and bought an old barn, and we called it the Stable Influence. That was kind of cool.
And that was in Indiana?
Indiana.
Right.
So when I moved here, one of my favorite foods is the cheeseburger.
Who does not love a cheeseburger?
All right, so
We've heard about this one.
so I started this place called Cheeseburger, 40 seats in an old dilapidated building on Periwinkle. It was a tremendous success, and I sold it 2 years later. But all I wanted to do was to start a restaurant and prove that I could overcome all the hurdles and pitfalls, like thievery.
Oh, yeah. Tell us about that.
Very big in the restaurant business.
I've heard that before.
People will give away meals, they'll give away drinks, they'll steal food, they'll do anything. And, they do it in good faith. They figure that I can afford it, so what the heck. But at the end of the experience with Cheeseburger, I had a waiter that came to me and he said, I've waited tables for 20 years on Sanibel. You could not walk out of here with a toothpick without you knowing it.
Okay. So you kept
I had a lot of, in the kitchen, without boring you with a long story, in the kitchen, I said, what's the problem with our food cost? And they said, it's spoilage. Yeah. God, it's terrible. And I said, okay. So I went over to Bailey's and I got these racks that held garbage bags. And I labeled them lettuce, onion, pickle, tomato, meat, buns, cheese. I said, all the spoilage in the bags. Seal them up, put them in a walk-in cooler. I'll check them out every morning.
Wow.
Yeah. And surprisingly, a week later, we had no spoilage.
Nothing spoiled.
Oh, my gosh.
You run a tight ship.
Yeah. And then we put in draft beer. I remember that. And our beer cost was tremendous. Did you ever hear the phrase, let me buy you a beer? Mm-hmm. Well, we had a lot of people that used that phrase at Cheeseburger, yeah. And their friends would sit down, let me buy you a pitcher of beer. Yeah, so they'd slug them with a pitcher of beer.
Right.
So finally I said, okay, we're taking that out. We're going to put in 5 brands domestic beer, 5 counterpoint light beers, and 3 foreign beers. And they'll all be listed on the menu, and they all have to be in a returnable bottle. So when they were out, they put the bottles into the cartons. I would look at the X out of the cash register receipt, and I'd say, 21 Miller Lights. Count the Miller Lights. And we'd say, 21. Okay, perfect. So it worked.
Wow.
Okay, that's enough of that.
How long were you involved with that restaurant for?
Let's see. I was a little over 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's still in
for
existence
those that
today.
don't know, it's still in existence. It's expanded. I think there's one at the Atlanta airport. There's one in Fort Myers. There's
and New York airport.
New York
JFK,
airport,
yeah.
Really?
Yeah, 75 locations now.
Oh my gosh.
Okay,
Did it start in the location it's at now?
No, it started actually up by what used to be Macintosh Books up at the other end.
Cottages to Castles, I think, is there now.
So-
It's that low-rise building there. Yeah.
Well, I don't think there's anything in that building now. It was a
Right, it was a
two-story building.
two-story one.
Yeah.
Beside
I think
that.
they're going to tear it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a weird parking situation, I think.
Awful parking situation.
Yeah.
And the city said you can have, for every 2 seats, you have to have a parking place. That was how it worked.
Yeah.
So we leased some parking around the area.
Right.
For
Really?
Cheeseburger.
Wow.
Yeah. And I remember doing test cooking for for cheeseburger. And I had all my friends every night would come over for cheeseburgers. It was like a optometrist where you say, you like this one better, you like that one better. This one better.
I know that all too well. Yeah.
And I had friends that said, do not invite me to your house for another cheeseburger.
I'm sick to death of it.
They're probably put off for life.
So that was one of the areas. 1990. I decided to just go out on my own and freelance and do that type work. And I ran across a guy in Cape Coral by the name of Russ Whitney. Russ was a real estate guru. He did infomercials and did seminars and all that stuff. So I went to work for him, finally became the president of his company. And Russ and I had a great association. In 1995, we split, and that was good. And I came back to doing television production out of my home.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
My whole lower level had big 1-inch tape decks and Humatics and betas and all that other stuff.
And I know you said you're working on a production now. Tell us about that.
Actually, well, I'm working on several things right now.
Okay.
But one is a film, a documentary or a film about retiring pilots called Flying West. Oh. And this is everybody from astronauts to... I've just met so many neat people. I go into their hangars at an old grass airport in Ohio, New Philadelphia, Ohio, and met this guy. He was 92.
Wow.
And I said, what did you do when you gave up flying? And he said, I didn't give up flying.
I'm still flying. Wow.
He said, no, I fly an ultralight airplane now. And I said, oh, that's neat. There's a resort which has been closed since. It's called Chalet Suzanne. Did you ever hear of that?
I did hear of that. Where was that?
It's in northern Florida, up north of Sebring on 27. And they had an airstrip there, and it was a very famous little resort. Oh, cute little place with a gourmet restaurant, and they had a soup kitchen there. And at any rate, I was at Avon Park, and we were picked up by this young gentleman, and he took us over to the airport because I didn't want to land in there because it was only 2,700 feet or something. So I said, why the airport? And he said, oh, my grandfather actually built the airport. And I said, well, when did he quit flying? And he said, no, he still flies.
He still flies too.
He said, there's a lake right at one end of the runway. And about twice a month, we fish Grandpa out of the lake. And
So I was chatting with Liz, and we were talking about Don's I fly ultralights myself, and Don's very proficient, obviously, at flying. And we were talking about his impeccable flight record with not even a wheel nudging off into the grass. So that's incredible. How long have you been flying?
Well, this July 30th, 60 years.
60 years without one reportable incident in 60 years is an incredible
and she
flying
mentioned
achievement.
you received some kind of award for that. Tell us about that.
Yes, as a matter of fact, the FAA has an award. It's the highest award they give to pilots, called the Wright Brothers Master Pilot Award. And it's for 50 years of accident-free flying and at least one major contribution to aviation safety. I received that in 2011. There's 691,000 registered pilots, and less than 1% of us have that award.
That's incredible.
Very proud of it.
Yeah,
I
for
can
sure.
imagine.
That's incredible.
And most people will say, what was your contribution to aviation safety?
There you go.
You
was
go
just
ahead.
about to
You
ask.
All
just
right.
asked
What
me.
was your Max, do you want to ask it?
What was your contribution to aviation safety?
I'm glad you asked that question. The original pulsing lights on the wingtips of airplanes, the big jets and all that, okay, that was my box. It was called Pulse Light. And I patented that back in the 80s. And then I invented speed brakes for light airplanes and standby vacuum systems. So
Wow.
Just a
Dang.
few things.
Just a few things.
Wow.
So,
Minor things.
yeah.
So did you have a patent on those lights, or did you?
I did, yes.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, those were strobe lights with a very high amperage power supply that fired them. And since LEDs have come out, that's past history.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
okay. Incredible.
that was cool.
Incredible.
Yeah, inventions. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I've
you
had
must
a
have
few
some
of
other
those.
ones.
Well, in 1963, I was on the air for the CBS station in Indianapolis, and they sold the station, so I was out of work. I went to work for Roscoe Turner, which was one of the air aces. He did the Bendix and Thompson races in the 30s, and just a flamboyant guy. He traveled with a pet lion in his cockpit. And at any rate, he was the largest Beechcraft distributor in the United States. So I went to work for him. I did several innovative promotions for him, and Beech Aircraft noticed those and wanted to borrow me. So I went to work for them for a while. And my ultimate goal was to start a production company. I got a call one day from a salesman at the television station that I had come from. And he said, I need a children's game show. And I wonder if you could come up with something. And I said, hey, yeah, okay, I'll work on it. So I worked on this thing that had a giant box on a tripod, and in the box were pegs, various size pegs, colored pegs, and a trigger that triggered an alarm if you pulled the wrong peg, and the bar came down and did that. Okay.
Okay.
And on the back of the pegs were, the biggest peg had bicycles you could win or electric trains. The small ones, maybe silly putty or slinkies or whatever. We took that game to the toy show in New York, the Toy Fair, seeking new sponsors. And Parker Brothers came by and said, we don't want to sponsor, but we'd like to buy the game.
No way.
And
Really?
so we sold it. It's called Booby Trap.
Booby traps.
Still being manufactured.
No way.
No way.
In fact, my little grandson, I bought a couple of the booby traps off eBay, and one was the original. As a matter of fact, I should have brought it. It has a picture of my hand.
Oh, wow. Oh, you're a
the
hand
game.
model too.
No way.
Okay.
So,
Hand
but-
modeling, inventor.
But I bought a couple of the games, and I took one on vacation with us, and Jack, my little grandson, I said, hey, Jack, look at this. So a few minutes later, he said, come on, Grandpa, let me show you how to play this game.
Oh, that's funny.
No way.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And did it stand the test of time? With
Oh,
the,
yeah. We had a lot of
You had
fun with
good
it.
fun?
Yeah, sure did.
Fun. That was super cool.
So Sanibel has been quite an experience. It's changed a lot.
I was just about to ask, what is the thing that you've noticed that's changed the most since you've been here?
I think recognition. More and more people recognize what a beautiful paradise we're in.
Yeah.
And they want to come here and they want to visit. And then when they visit, they want to live here. And, it goes from that. But at the time, I remember before we ever moved here, I rented an airplane in Englewood, Florida, and flew to Marco. And my wife looked out, and I said, "That's Sanibel Island. That's the shelling capital of the world." She said, "What?" I don't know. She didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
And a few years later, we lived here. But I think that's it. We've got a lot more people. We've got a lot more traffic. We've got a more affluent society.
Mm-hmm.
The income level is way up. The retired level is way up.
Yeah.
It's as pleasant as it was when I moved here.
Yeah. I was going to say
Is it?
that
Yeah.
because saying that with all the influx of
Yeah.
people, they still have kept it
Yeah, and I think
the natural paradise.
because of the 2/3 being a nature preserve
Right.
of the island, I think that's one of the reasons.
Yeah.
It's not going to expand. If you want something now, you got to buy it and tear it down, build something else, or
Yeah.
live in it. Yeah.
Yes.
I agree.
But it's been a really rewarding experience, and watching Liz grow up on Sanibel was really, really.
She
neat.
has, from when we spoke to her, she has wonderful, fond memories of growing up on the island. So
In I can't remember, 1975 or 77, I bought a little Model T, a gasoline-powered Model T Ford little thing, and I put it in the parade for the Indianapolis 500-mile race, which was always the same street, checkerboard carpet all the way down the street. And I had a clown in the car with a tripod and a box camera, and he would get out of the car, and the year before, we had taken pictures of the crowd on that parade route. in the back of the camera, we had 2,000 copies of that picture.
Oh, okay.
He would get out and he'd say, "Okay, smile," and all this. And he would look at it, click like that. And then he would go throw the pictures out, and nobody could figure out how they did. Well, that car wound up in our studio. And when Liz was probably, I'm going to say 7 or 8 years old, we broke it out and she drove it. We brought it to Florida. And she drove it from our house to the school bus stop.
Really?
And put it in a guy's yard all day. Yeah.
Do you still have the car?
Still have
You
it.
do?
Yeah.
You'll
Yep.
have to send us a picture.
It's been reworked several times. I think I have more in that car than I do in my car. Yeah. So, but
super cool.
that's kind of neat.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, and I suppose when you moved into Gumbo Limbo, correct?
Yes, that
But
was
they
our
rented,
first.
right?
We had a rental place there.
So was that fully developed at that point or not? Because Gumbo Limbo is probably one of the older developments on the island. It's on the right-hand side as you come on to the island. It's alongside the dunes.
And it's neat. It's a neat little community. I'd say 50% at that time.
50%,
Yeah, and then we moved to another location on. We had a lease with an option to own on Limpet Drive. We stayed there for a couple of years, and then the owner came along and said, "I really don't want to sell, so I need you out in 30 days."
Oh, wow.
And I thought, well, let's see, what else
Now
can
what?
happen to me while I'm here? So I said, well, that's not going to work out, but we'll build a house. I went to the dunes and got a lot, and we moved into a little apartment right down by the service station coming on the island, right behind that. And moved into our house in 1985 Christmas time. And I went to Bailey's and I bought a little northern pine tree in a cup like this. And I said, okay, I bought a house. I couldn't afford a Christmas tree, so here it
This
is.
is what you got.
I put that down. I planted it in our backyard, and the other day I looked at it, and I think it's right at 100 feet tall.
No way.
That's super cool.
Yeah. And it's been through all sorts of hurricanes.
That's right.
Yeah, that's
It survived
awesome.
everything.
That's awesome.
Did you give it one of your hurricane preparation packs?
No. I actually just gave it a prayer book right at the bottom. I just taped it to the tree.
All right, Max, have you got any?
Some trivia?
Some trivia for us?
We have some trivia.
Trivia.
So that's what the paper's for. We do a little trivia at the end of
All
every
right.
episode.
Right.
You should be good at it.
Since you've been here for so long.
Well,
I'm going to skip to one of the questions because it was mentioned earlier. So
Okay. We're ready. Fire
here's
away.
our first question, which was originally the second. A majority of Sanibel Island is conservation land. What % is preserved?
Oh, okay. Why aren't you writing, Nick?
Because
It
I'm
was-
thinking
it-
very carefully.
Don already said the answer earlier.
yep.
He did?
He did. You didn't hear it?
Why don't you put the camera on another person? Take a look at Dom's.
Reminds me of Kathy, or not Kathy, but the morning show on TV. Yep. When they call up and say, "Do you remember this from yesterday's episode?"
Nope.
No, got nothing.
Okay.
All right, go for it, Max.
All right. Don, what do you have?
Well, I have 66%, but it's really 2/3.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, Mom.
I put 60%. So,
I put 63%.
Yep. Don's right. It's
Okay.
60. Round up 67%. 2/3.
Okay.
There you go.
66.666.
all right, one
Okay.
to Don.
All right,
That's
one to
fine.
Don.
All right.
Okay.
I know we're in film production, so I have another question about a film that was shot here. We talked about the commercial, but this is a film. George A. Romero's Day of the Dead was shot in part on Sanibel Island in 1985. What kind of iconic horror creatures were the so-called dead?
Oh, well, that's easy, isn't it?
We'll see when
We'll see.
you reveal your answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I guess you can all three say it at once. I think you've all got it.
Okay, 1, 2, 3,
Zombies.
zombies.
All right. You got that one. Have you ever seen that movie, Don?
No, I tried to stay away from that movie.
Yeah.
Yes, it's one of those where I build it as "don't fail to miss it."
That's funny.
Do you remember them coming here?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you do.
Really?
That's cool.
Yeah. And they also filmed in Fort Myers down in downtown.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, by the
did.
bank.
It's cool. I've seen it. It's cool to watch like how things have changed, to recognize the little spots.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Last question. Don is in the lead with 1 point.
Yep.
Everyone else, or 2 points. Everyone else has one. All right. The last question. The island of Sanibel has been in existence for thousands of years, but it was not officially incorporated as a city until what year? Don, it looks like Don's got it. He might take away.
Okay.
Has everyone got it?
Yeah.
Dad, you go first.
1972.
Mom?
But I've just
74.
realised it's 74. I just remembered.
Don?
63.
74.
74.
Oh, no.
1 to 1.
What do we do for a tie?
You know what I was thinking about was the bridge.
Yes, 63 was the bridge.
Okay.
11 years later, it was incorporated.
Right. So now we're tied, Max. Now
We're
what?
tied. I don't have a backup question
All right.
as of right now.
Do we get popcorn
You
or
get
what?
popcorn. Share the prize. There you go.
Ding, ding, ding. High five.
All right.
Oh,
High five.
High five.
Ah,
There you go. Joint high five for the winners.
That rings a bell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, well, I don't think we've even scratched the surface
No.
on this, so I think what we're going to do, let's call it...
Because we were talking before we started filming about you did produce for Night of the Stars. Is that?
Yes.
Hold on
Right,
one
I
second.
know.
We'll have to.
Okay.
So what we're going to do, we're going to turn this into a two-parter, and we're going to take, we're going to end this right now. Thanks very much to our sponsors, Bailey's General Store, GatorBites Tail and Ale, Breakaway Vacations, and Three Crafty Ladies. Please check them out if you get a chance. Thanks very much for joining us on this
Spoondrift. We forgot
episode.
Spoondrift.
Spoondrift, the best poke bowls on the island. Thank you, Don, for coming.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it's been great, and
happy.
look forward to part 2. So
Yeah.
thanks very much.
And we'll have
part 4, part 5.
And we'll have Liz on again too.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, boy.
All right. Thanks very much,
two.
guys. Have a good one.
Have a good one.
Thank you.